Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video on The Flash Season 9. Today we're going to be talking about why The Flash ended, why Grant Gustin made the decision to have Season 9 as the final season. There is an article that we're breaking down from Entertainment Weekly. There's also a video where Grant is interviewed, so if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future DCTV videos later this year. Okay guys, so this is a very exciting article and video we're breaking down. He goes fully into detail as to the ending of the show and what went on behind the scenes. So I'll leave the link in the description below to the article if you want to go check it out. Obviously we're making plenty of Flash videos as we head towards this Wednesday's series finale of the show, so stick around. Also later tonight or tomorrow I should have an extended trailer breakdown video out because they released a final trailer for the series finale episode and it includes more footage of the different speedster villains. But let's go ahead and start breaking this article down. So the article is titled How Grant Gustin Runs the Flash and the Arrowverse Across the Finish Line. Also the video that they released is called Grant Gustin Explains Why He Ended the Flash. I'm just going to be going through the article because the article basically goes over what they talked about in that interview, but the interview link will also be in the description below if you want to just go watch that video, because obviously Grant Gustin's there himself talking about all of this, but I'm just doing it here in words so I can easily break it down for you guys. So I'm going to skip the first part of this article because I'm going to be doing a separate video on it later this week. But Grant goes on to say, when it came to the greater Arrowverse, the scale of it was something that was really lost on me for the majority of the run. It's something I won't fully understand or appreciate for years and years and years to come. To see what the impact that Greg Berlanti and executive producer Mark Guggenheim and all those guys were able to do on the TV landscape, it was unlike anything that had ever been attempted in television. I think that is entirely true, and I can totally understand not understanding the true scope of it and probably realizing later on. I feel like we've come to realize that over the last few years, especially as crossovers became smaller and we had less huge crossovers because of the impact of the lockdowns and restrictions. But for actors, they were just like continually making the shows, making new episodes week to week for like 9 months a year up in Vancouver. So I totally understand them not fully appreciating the whole scope of it. I think you really need to be an invested audience member in order to understand that. But let's see what he says. So super producer Berlanti admits that he had no idea what he was starting when he decided to introduce Barry Allen without speedster powers in the two-part mid-season finale of Arrow's second season. Berlanti is quoted as saying, "We all loved these characters so much, and as we began working on Arrow, more characters would come up and other possibilities open to us creatively." And he goes on to say, "I had always loved Barry Allen as a kid, and I guess in the back of my mind the hope was to include him in some way in Arrow, but obviously we knew that we could take our show into the realm of superpowers. We had to find a way to do it that worked in our creative reality and in the time and the budget of a TV show." There is a little segment with Stephen Amell here from a past interview. He says, "This was right after the first season of Arrow. Greg Berlanti called me into his office and said, 'Hey, we're going to be introducing Barry Allen. He's the Flash. We want to spend a bit of time building the Justice League on TV.' And that's precisely what they did. I mean, I think DC gets a lot of shit for not building this interconnected film universe, but I just think people need to look at what they did on TV. And this sentiment is shared across the board between Arrowverse stars and showrunners past and present, as they all praise Berlanti for pulling off the impossible. Crossovers have been done before, they'll be done again, but the scale to which we did it was unprecedented," which is entirely true. Like, the Arrowverse is the king of crossovers. I think it will be extremely hard for any kind of universe out there that people are creating post-Arrowverse to be as good and as big as this. They definitely pulled off the impossible in my opinion, but let's see what they say next. So, that said, nothing lasts forever. As the Arrowverse grew exponentially, it eventually hit its peak in 2019 and 2020's massive Crisis on Infinite Earth saga, marking the beginning of the end. Arrow concluded its run shortly after in 2020, Supergirl and Black Lightning followed shortly after the next year, and in 2022, Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow were cancelled too soon. When Superman and Lois declared in its Season 2 finale that it no longer exists on the same Earth where the shared universe takes place, The Flash officially became the last standing Arrowverse series. That's true, however, Superman Lois is still in the Arrowverse, it's just on a different Earth. We've established that it's just out there in the multiverse. Yeah, it's a shame in 2022 when Nexstar took over the CW, they threw away Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow really quickly as their shows were ending. As for Arrow, yeah, it concluded after Crisis, and Supergirl and Black Lightning followed suit the next year, but they ended, they didn't get cancelled, so that's kind of a different situation. But it's right, nothing lasts forever, and now The Flash is technically the last Arrowverse show, even though there's still Superman, Lois, and Gotham Knights, they're just not necessarily on Earth Prime. So when Gustin made the call to end The Flash after season 9, he unintentionally ended the Arrowverse along with it. As for why Gustin decided to hang up his super suit, he said it just felt like time. A lot of people wanted us to get to 10 seasons, but in my mind we did 10 years. It was 2013 when I was first cast as Barry Allen in Arrow, and we finished in 2023. We had done everything we needed to do, the characters were in a good place, and we reached the conclusion. It's clear that Grant Gustin is at peace with his choice, but it took him a long time and several false starts to get there. The actor actually tried to make the call a few different times during the past 9 seasons, but was always talked out of it. Initially, when we all signed on, it was a 6-year run that got extended to 7, then he got married, then he also had a kid that was in season 7. So obviously you start thinking about life changes at that point. Plus Arrow had ended with season 8, so I thought let's end with season 8 along with Arrow. And so after a conversation with Greg Berlanti, Gustin was convinced to keep going for just a little while longer, but 2 weeks after wrapping season 8, he called up Greg Berlanti, the Flash showrunner Eric Wallace, and then CW president Mark Pedowitz and WBTV's CEO to share that season 9 would be his last. That's what he wanted to do, and everyone agreed with him that, yeah, it's a decent point to end the show. Shame it's not season 10. But, as Grant Gustin said, it was 10 years of The Flash, seeing Grant as The Flash, so it's been a long time, it's been an entire decade of The Flash. So, at that point, he didn't know if the show would continue without him as the titular hero, or if his decision to leave would also mean the end of The Flash. He says, I just knew it was time for me to step away and have more time with my family, and just enter the next chapter of my life. He goes on to say, but I think I would have really questioned my decision if they had done a season 10 without him, if I knew the whole family was still together and I was somewhere else, so I'm glad we all finished at the same time. I'm not really a FOMO person, but I would have for sure had FOMO about that. So Grant Gustin was relieved when the powers that be decided to end the series with a shortened 13-episode final season rather than let it go on without him. Grant was so incredibly thoughtful in his decision, and I understood it completely. Greg Berlanti says, the reason he's such a great Barry is he exudes the same goodness on screen that he possesses in real life. That's why Grant Gustin felt like it was his responsibility to break the news of the show ending to the entire cast himself, starting with Candice Patton, who has played his on-screen partner in crime, Iris West Allen, for all 9 seasons, but unbeknownst to Gustin, she says, I knew it was going to be my last year too, whether the show continued or not, Patton says, so I was definitely relieved that Grant was on the same page about ending the show. I definitely didn't want to leave before everyone else, so I was just really glad. So that's actually an interesting sneak peek into what Candice was thinking. So if Grant continued for season 10, it looks like maybe Candice would have left at the end of season 9, because just like Grant, she felt like it was time. Obviously this has been a whole decade of seeing them, and I totally understand it. Like, of course I would like The Flash to go on for longer, and I would love to see Grant as The Flash. However, it's just what it is. Like, we have to accept these shows can't go on forever and things do come to an end. But let's go back and analyze some more before we talk about what the other cast members' reaction to the show ending was. Also, we have a bunch of photos from the series finale which we're going to be breaking down. I forgot to mention that at the start of the video, but we're going to be doing that after I've broken down this whole article. So let's go back. So Grant Gustin decided after season 8, after the finale, that he would make that call and season 9 would be the last season. And obviously they got a shortened season just like the way Arrow ended, and I guess that kind of worked out for everyone because it could be a more compact season focused on trying to end the show in a satisfying way. And so it's also interesting that he, in his mind, was like, maybe the Flash will continue on without me if I make this decision, because maybe the network and Greg Berlanti will want to see the Flash continue. Maybe Nora will be the main Flash, maybe it could be Bart, something like that I think Grant was thinking. But he was actually kind of happy that the show ended along with when he wanted to leave the show. And so I really think this would be for the best, because we've seen it before when like Supergirl wasn't in a bunch of her own episodes, and when the Flash is missing from his episodes, everyone always complains. And so I feel like this was the right decision to make, to not let the show continue on without the Flash, because he is the core of the show, and I think without Grant there, you might as well do a spin-off. So there would be no point continuing the show as we know it. And obviously I'm a supporter for spin-offs. I would love to see a Nora and Bart Allen spin-off in the future, but we don't know. So he knew it was going to be his last year, whether the show continued or not. But also Candace Patton was on the same page. I think we've known that for quite a while. Candace was missing from a chunk of the recent seasons. I think like a lot of other actors, it just became a lot over however many years. Like it just adds up, I think. And also you have to remember these guys are living in Vancouver. Obviously some people are from Canada, like Stephen and Mel, so that's a little bit different. But a lot of them are from different areas, like I believe a lot of them live in LA. So I think they missed where they're from and their families and everything like that. So it just makes sense. Like they wanted to move on to the next stage of their life, especially Grant Gustin, who's married, he has a kid now. And so it just makes sense that this was the time to move on. But Grant Gustin's conversation with Danielle Panabaker, the only other series regular aside from him and Candace Patton, who has stuck around for all 9 seasons, went a lot differently from Patton's reaction. So Candace says, I laughed at him because that was not the first time that Grant had told me that he was done with the show. Many times over the last 9 years, he's gone so far to make phone calls and tell people that he was ready to be done. I really believe season 8 was going to be his last year, so I've heard this song and dance before. When it broke in the press, I texted him saying, okay, I believe you this time. So that's a funny reaction. Obviously, as Grant said, he was married in season 5, he had a kid in season 7, so it made sense that potentially season 8 could be their last season. But when it broke in the press with them planning to make season 9 the last season, Danielle believed him. The rest of the cast, while disappointed to know the end was finally coming, all supported Grant Gustin's decision. Wallace, however, was hoping for one more season. The showrunner had already sketched out plans for season 9 and 10 to end the show on episode 200, which I think we all would have liked, and it's a shame we didn't get to there. But Eric Wallace pivoted, leaving a lot of his original ideas on the cutting room floor to end the series on episode 184 instead. Eric Wallace's original reaction to finding out that it would be not only the last season but a shortened last season was bittersweet and a lot of disappointment, he says, initially. But he goes on to say, we are the lucky ones, we got a year of knowing this is the end, so let's make the greatest end we possibly can. So we've talked about Eric Wallace and his statements to do with season 10 and beyond. Obviously as a showrunner and not as an actor, I feel like you're inclined to do more seasons than the actor, because I guess it's a little bit less draining, although he does so much work. Like Eric directs episodes, he writes a lot of the episodes, he's involved in literally every process on the show. So I think with him, he has so many ideas that he would love to, ended with that rounded number of 200 episodes, just like the fans. But we have to understand from a human perspective the impact that it has filming something for 10 years straight. And he goes on to say that I've approached the Flash being over, and he wanted to make the best Flash series finale as possible. He also makes a separate statement about the Arrowverse, but I'm going to talk about that in a separate video, because he talks about how he's hopeful that the Arrowverse is not over and this isn't the final goodbye, because he says, despite the facts, he's just not ready to say goodbye. So that's super interesting. I'm going to get into that in a separate video, because I think that definitely deserves its own video. But for now, whether he likes it or not, Eric Wallace is bringing the Arrowverse to a close when the Flash series finale airs Wednesday, May 24th at 8 PM. He says, I've wrapped up a lot of things in the series finale, and it ends on a hopeful note that shows you the future of the Arrowverse could continue in some way, shape or form, which I think is great. And he says it hopefully gives people some closure and also some hope for the future, because otherwise it's very sad to think there won't be an Arrowverse show after May 24th. Grant Gustin goes on to say that it is poignant that it finishes as Barry and I are both starting a family. Grant goes on to say, I had a lot of figuring things out to do over the course of the 9 years, and the same for Barry. None of us knew what we were getting into when the show started or how big it was going to be, and I'm just proud of the way we all grew together and always continued to show up for the show and do the best we could. I really think we finished on a high note. So I like that Grant is drawing parallels to his real life, and lots of people have made the comparison that Grant's really nice in real life and he's very similar to Barry. Obviously he doesn't have superpowers and he's a normal person, but you know, there is a lot of similarities, and it definitely is poignant that he's ending the show as he starts his family and Barry starts his own family. So there is just a lot of parallels going on, and so yeah, I'm glad that it's ending in this way, in my personal opinion. But Wallace is most excited for the finale viewers to see how he's leveled up Barry Allen to his full comic book potential, to almost godlike status. That's a big statement right there from Eric Wallace. He says he's not the same person who got struck by lightning way back in 2014. He says, look at what he's become over the 9 years, which is a message to the audience. Look at what you can all become. Everybody can fulfill their full potential if you just take a heroic path. But of course that path won't be easy for Barry and the rest of Team Flash, as they wrote the shit out of the last 4 episodes, and the way they're bringing all these characters and everybody's favorite villains back in the finale. It's going to be insane, says Brandon McKnight, who plays Chester on the show. Joining all those villains is resurrected Season 1 ally Eddie Thawne, played by Rick Cosnett, Breaking Bad as DC Comics supervillain Cobalt Blue. There is a quote here, what Rick did coming back as Eddie blew me away, Grant Gustin teases. I'm excited for the fans to see the storyline unfold, because I think we're building to those moments for a long time, and I think that is entirely true, and I love the way the show is ending. I think Cobalt Blue is amazing so far, and Rick has been killing it in these past 3 episodes, so I look forward to this series finale, seeing Rick Cosnett fully suited up as Cobalt Blue and facing off against Team Flash, with the return of some surprise cameos from Teddy Sears as Zoom, along with Tom Cavanaugh's Reverse Flash. We know that Godspeed's there, also Savitar is there. Grant also teases, along with some of the other cast members, we're not going to break down their reactions to that last day on set, but you can read it in the article. Grant Gustin says he was surprised by his own reaction a day later after filming his very last scene. Running on a green screen, he says, I thought it would be more complicated for me emotionally. I thought I'd have more of a struggle, and I wasn't emotional. I was almost feeling guilty, like, why am I not crying more every day like everybody is? And I know Steven was that way too when Arrow was ending. I'm a very sensitive person and very honest about my emotions, but I think it just spoke to how it was time for it to end, and I was ready. So I think that is a very valid reaction, and it's only 2 months later or so that, you know, the emotion is finally starting to sink in. And I believe Melissa Benoist said a similar thing after Supergirl ended, because I feel like at the time you're like, okay, it's ending, and then you don't go back and film on the Flash set or Supergirl set every day, and then you start to think, oh wow, like I did this every day for God knows however many years. And so Grant says I was just really taking it in and appreciating that I got to be the one to wear the suit, because it could have been anyone else and I was the one lucky enough to get to do it. And he got to share his last moments on the set with his family, with his wife, with his daughter, and there is that iconic video of him hanging up his suit for the last time that was filmed by his wife. He says that it's going to be something that he'll cherish forever, sharing that moment with his family, especially as he looks at his future post The Flash. He says, now I'm going into this next chapter in my life where I don't know what's going to be happening professionally, and I've said it for years, this may very well be the pinnacle of my career, and how cool if it is that I got to do this. But I get to now go into the unknown with my family. Now I'm just a husband and a dad and not the Flash anymore. Also, to end the article, he says he's finally really excited to participate in more fan conventions now that he suddenly has more free time in his schedule. He says, we're still talking Flash. I'm still going to get to meet the Flash fans, and it's a new chapter of the Flash era now, so I don't think it's ever really going to end. The filming chapter is closed, but I still get to be the Flash, so I shouldn't say I used to be the Flash. I should just say yes when people ask me if I'm the Flash. And I think that's a good way to end this video, because that is entirely true. To me, when I think of the Flash, I think Grant Gustin, and so his legacy is definitely going to be defined by the Flash. Obviously, he can do some great stuff in the future in film or TV, but what they created with the Flash, with Arrow, with the Arrowverse, is just immense compared to literally anything out there. So yeah, this is going to be a emotional end to the show this coming Wednesday for the series finale, but I'm glad that I get to share it with you guys. I've actually decided that I'm going to talk about those photos I mentioned earlier in a separate video, because this video turned out to be really long. It's nearly 20 minutes long, so I'm going to do that in a separate video, so stick around for that. In the next few days, we're going to be talking about those photos with Zoom and Godspeed and Cobalt Blue and everything. So that does it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said earlier, go check out this article. It's really long, like it's in so much detail with so many different people giving responses in order to kind of round up the series finale of The Flash and the whole show. Plus also there is that interview video with Grant Gustin that he pretty much says very similar things to what was quoted in this article, so go check that out in the description down below. But for now, leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed this video, helps out the channel. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. But for now, you can click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.
I see red.